Hey everybody, and welcome to Tuesdays with Tim. Tim with a Y, actually, and it's the Wednesday edition. Yes, I hope you had a wonderful Thanksgiving. I had a wonderful Thanksgiving, very busy, very full. But I just really had a hard time getting going this week. So this is a Tuesdays with Tim, the Wednesday edition for this week. And today what I want to talk to you a little bit about is the whole idea is like, hey, do you have like people who lie in your environment and in your world, in your relationship world? And if so, does that really trigger you? Well, today's conversation or share is inspired by a session that I did with this great woman who's really, digging deep into what's going on with her. And something that is interesting that came out of the conversation is she at one point said, I'm surrounded by people who lie, right? And this is, primary relationship, extended family, all this stuff. And it's like, okay, originally, I shouldn't say originally, but more commonly, people seem to want to change the behaviors of others when they're looking to improve their relationship world. But what I said to her was like, okay, so you have all of this lying happening in the external world. What do you think's going on internally with you that brings this about? So here's something you need to know a little bit about energy. So energy, when it's in its beautiful harmonic patterning, right? It's this attraction, tension, beautiful, constructive form. It's wonderful. But then when we have these attractor factors that don't seem aligned, right? So with this woman, she has a real issue with people who lie. And she would never lie, right? She would never lie to somebody else. Yet here she is surrounded by people who she describes as being people who lie. So what is happening here? And what I want to share with you is it's all about how energy works together. So if you don't have a well-balanced energy cycle, a well-matched energy cycle, that's even a little bit better to say. If something's still happening in your world and the result is something's happening in your world, even though it seems to be misaligned, how energy seems to work is there's always a complementary pattern, right? So if she has people who are in her world that are lying, there's got to be a complementary pattern to that. And so since she has such a strict and rigid relationship that she would never, ever, ever lie to somebody, then that lie has to happen somewhere else. And obviously, if this is an external part of what's going on, then maybe that lie is happening inside her. So that's where the conversation went, is like, all right, so what lie are you telling yourself that allows you to keep people who lie in your circle, right? So what kind of lie are you telling yourself that doesn't have any kind of boundary, that allows them to leak into your world, if you will, and you allow for that? How does that work? So ultimately, that conversation ended up being really, really super constructive. She's like, oh, I never saw that I was lying to myself. And that's the complementary pattern to being surrounded and attracting and organizing all of this lying field around her. So I always talk about going to the point of leverage, because it's futile to try to change someone else's behavior. So what we want to do is, where is the point of leverage? And that point of leverage is always inside you. And if you understand this really from a quantum perspective, you'll notice that when you change the settings inside you, the settings outside of you change. So, or the results, or what's reflected back to you, changes. So I change, and then the things that are reflected back to me change. So it's like, okay, instead of judging all these people for lying, how about we just surrender to this idea that people lie, and then resolve this relationship with how I'm lying to myself, and then see what happens. Because in those cases, if she actually follows through with it, and we get to the point where she can resolve that leaking energy of where she lies to herself, well, chances of one of a couple of things are going to happen. First thing that might happen is people who lie, since she's no longer polarizing that, will either just kind of fall away, or the relationship will sort of take a quantum shift, if you will, and become more in alignment with what she's willing to stand with inside of herself. So if she's willing to let go of this energy where she's lying to herself, resolve that so she no longer polarizes when lies happen in her world, she says, hey, you know what? people lie, and that's fine. I'm just not, I just don't want those people in my world. It's totally fine. They're more than willing, or they're more than well, what's the word I'm looking for? They have the right to lie if they want, but if I cure up my energy inside where I'm lying to myself, those people are all just going to fall away, or the space for that lie to exist is going to disappear, which makes it really cool. Then you can have a more harmonious relationship. So if you have people in your world that I would say are in the behavior of lying, well, maybe, just maybe, there's a place inside of you that you're lying to yourself. And if you resolve that, when you resolve that, you don't have to worry about trying to change anyone else's behavior. How the energetics will actually take care of themselves, right? They'll become more or less disparate and more in a harmonized, matching pattern. And when that happens, people think really beautiful things can shift and change in relationship. And that's what I got for you today. So with that, have a beautiful day. Happy Tuesdays with Tim on Wednesday for this week. What can I say? Not perfect, but I hope you have a great week, and we'll look forward to connecting next week. Sound good?